Hello, and welcome back to Go With The Flow. I'm your host, Shannon, and today I'm joined by Allison, Tyra, and Chris, and today we'll be discussing graduate writing. We know it can be a struggle transitioning from undergrad to grad school, especially when it comes to writing expectations. So we've decided it would be a good idea to openly talk about those struggles and give some practical advice to help you along the way. So I want to give my guests an opportunity to introduce themselves. You can share what you do here at Lewis, how long you've been working at the Writing Center, and also maybe a fun fact that you would like to share. Allison, why don't you start us off?
Okay, I am Allison Howard. I have worked at the Writing Center for 4 years, and I've also taught college writing too for 3 years through Lewis University as an adjunct. I guess my role in the Writing Center is I'm a graduate writing specialist, so I work with a lot of nursing grad students. A fun fact about me is that I super love horror movies.
Oh, me too. I love the horror genre. Okay, Tyra.
Hi, I'm Tyra. I'm a digital media journalism and PR double major and senior here at Lewis. I've been at the Writing Center as a Writing Center tutor for about 3 semesters, and I'm also the editor-in-chief on the student newspaper. One fun fact about me is my go-to karaoke song is Before He Cheats by Carrie Underwood.
Oh my gosh, I love that. My go-to karaoke song is Les Poissons from The Little Mermaid. It's the evil chef song.
Is that in French?
Yes, it is in
I
French.
love that song. I say it
Bilingual.
frequently.
Yes. Okay, and Chris, introduce yourself. Tell us how long you've been with the Writing Center, what you do at Lewis, and a fun fact.
Okay. Hi, my name is Chris. I've been at the Writing Center for about 2 years now, and a fun fact about me is that I'm writing a book. Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. I love to write, and I also love to read. So if you ever need a beta reader, let me know. All right, so we're going to be moving on to our first segment, differences between grad and undergrad writing. So I just have a couple questions here to get us started. First one being, how would you explain the biggest shift students experience when moving from undergraduate to graduate writing? And I would like Allison to start us off.
Probably the number one difference is that graduate students are often responsible for coming up with their own research questions and what form their research takes, kind of blazing their own trail, whereas in undergrad, it is often that you are addressing prompts given to you by an instructor. Not always, but a lot of times that is the case, and it's a lot more in grad school, it's going to be a lot more self-driven, and you have to be a self-starter, and you're going to be involved with writing assignments that you may not be familiar with and thinking processes that you might not have experienced before.
Yeah, I think that was well said. Chris or Tyra, do you have anything to add?
I think just like seeing the length too. I feel like that's a big jump from like 10 pages to however many, like for 20-page papers, that's the biggest thing I see. So I feel like that's a little bit jarring for transitioning too.
So our next question is, in your experience, what do students misunderstand about what professors expect at the grad level? So Chris, why don't you start us off with this one?
Okay. So a common misunderstanding that I've sort of seen is that, people usually just treat grad level writing as sort of honestly just like undergrad writing. But I think a big expectation that a lot of people don't consider is the fact that professors want to see you put in a lot of individual thought into it. They want you to develop what you're actually like working on or researching and add to it,
Right. Allison, Tyra, do you have anything to add?
I think that is true what Chris just said. In my college writing 2 class, I kind of encourage students to begin doing that at, just even in the first year writing program. But I have noticed that they kind of feel like they are on a tightrope without a net a little bit, and they are hoping to really have me tell them exactly what to do, and I kind of push that off on them, but I am there to like meet with them frequently and help them along with it. But it's a new experience for them a lot of times to look at writing that way.
Allison sort of touched on this, but I think the biggest thing I've seen with grad students is that they get like less guidance. They're looking at their rubrics and they think that like everything's gonna be outlined for them, but it's kind of just like you gotta figure it out. It's more on them rather than the professor telling them what to do.
Yeah, I couldn't have said it better myself. I think, again, as you guys were saying, it's important that grad students like take the lead on their own assignments and efforts. And it's, I think, just a certain level of professionalism that comes after undergrad and moving on to higher education. Again, I just think like you have to be able to, fight for yourself and advocate for yourself and be able to lead your own writing without as much guidance as you're used to. So we're going to move on to our next segment. This is going to be like our advice column of sorts. So our first question is, what is one piece of advice you wish that every new grad student knew about writing? And Tyra, I'm going to let you start us off with this.
I don't know, maybe like I think it's okay to just get everything out there first, because grad writing is hard. Like, at least putting all your information on the page and then sorting through it later could sort of help you, especially if it's a longer paper. Take it in chunks rather than trying to crank it all out at once. Like, organize your thoughts and then we can help you through it later.
All right, Allison, do you have anything to add to that?
Yes. So I would say that it's important to understand that the intellectual struggle is part of the process. So, no matter who you are, no matter how well-versed you think you are in a topic, at some point in your graduate school journey, you're going to be wrestling with some sort of intellectual struggle, like, okay, how do I position my own voice in reference to pre-existing research? What is a new direction I could take? How do I make my vision that I have in my mind like manifest in my work? And it feels like you don't know what you're doing, and it I think a lot of people freak out at that point, but that is part of it. So if you do have that sort of panic moment, just take some deep breaths, maybe practice some mindfulness, and you'll come out on the other side just fine if you just, manage your time correctly and don't let your stress bother you too much.
Yeah, we've talked about time management quite a bit this season on Go With The Flow, so I like that you pointed that out. All right, and Chris, do you have anything else to add?
Yeah, I mean, from what I was thinking of, like, it was very similar to what Allison ended up saying. Like, I wanted to tie it into sort of my own research that I was doing right now, which was actually what I was doing before I came over here. and like, I was thinking about how, like, in graduate level, like writing or research, that kind of stuff, the actual learning process, sort of, you're sort of doing the learning first, you're internalizing that, and then in conveying your own learning process, the actual writing becomes a whole lot easier once the learning has been internalized. I don't know if that makes sense.
I think it made sense. I think you got there, Chris. You're doing good.
Maybe.
All right, so my next question is, how can students move from simply summarizing sources to building their own argument? I think a lot of times in undergrad, students do default to that summarization skill that they have been developing, but when it comes to grad writing, you have to go beyond that. So I just wanted to touch on that a bit. And Allison, why don't you start us off?
Well, I think that one of the assignments that forces you to do that is a literature review. And a lot of graduate classes are going to include a literature review as either a paper in and of itself or part of a larger paper. And it is the synthesis piece is extremely important during that literature review writing process. And I feel like that really forces you to think in that way instead of just in the summary way, because you're trying to sort of compare and contrast the different sources against each other. You might have to organize it by theme. And I just think that the types of assignments that are assigned in grad school are generally going to force you to do more than summarize. And if you find yourself only summarizing, that should be a red flag too, that you should perhaps come to the Writing Center and we can help you out with that.
Yes, good plug. Come to the Writing Center. All right, Tyra, do you have anything to add?
I think also just remembering to tie back to your argument. I think people get so like tunnel vision trying to like explain their source and make sure that they're explaining it in detail so that the readers can understand. But also you got to remember that you're trying to make an argument here. You got to make that source useful to support your thesis.
Yeah, well said, well put. Chris, do you have anything to add?
I think you guys pretty much covered it, but I mean, even if you don't have like an actual like argument, you can still make it sort of thematic, right? So if you're doing like a review on like the different progress that's occurred on something over like the past however many years, you can still make that thematic. So as Tyra said, like tying back into that and making sure you're seeing why you're actually doing the research that you're doing can help.
Yeah, good job, Chris. Okay, next question, and I'm going to start with Allison again, just because we are a little bit short on time. So, what are some habits or strategies that strong graduate writers consistently use?
Well, I'm going to have to go back to time management again, but also at least when I was in grad school, I would set writing times, like I would schedule them as if it was, being a student was part of my job at that point. So, I would schedule my writing time to be at a certain time, and that was like non-negotiable, that I was going to use that time to write. But then I would also time myself, and I would work for a half hour, and then I would take like a 5-minute break, and I would use those breaks to like, get some kind of physical activity. Like sometimes I would do as many push-ups as I could, or I'd turn on like a fun song and have a de-stress mini dance party or something like that, just to keep yourself active, because you can get so much in your own head when you're working on a project that you'll sit there for hours and then you'll get up and your whole body will be like contorted because you were just like crouched over your computer for so long. So the time management, but also taking those breaks for self-care and making sure you're still moving is really important.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. Personally, when I'm working on like a tough writing assignment, even though I am not a grad writer yet, I find myself walking back and forth in my house to get some steps in, get some movement in, because hunching over my desk is not good for me. Chris, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I mean, usually something that I see that's pretty common with like good writers, like good habits that they have, would be like they get down like a some form of draft. I know like a type of advice that people like to use is just get everything down on the paper and then you can work with it later. And I tend to see that in strong writers, they get something down and then they do a lot of review. For me, my writing process is slightly different. I like to do a lot of organization before I start writing, and then when I actually start writing, everything comes easier. But definitely the review process, I think. Making sure that you're doing multiple rounds of review on your paper that you've written. Yeah.
And Tyra, do you have anything to add?
I think kind of just what Allison said, just like sometimes you got to take that break. Like put your paper away, let it sit for like an hour, and then come back, and then maybe you'll find something different.
Yeah, I think we can all come to the consensus that self-care is very important when it comes to your studies. All right, we're going to move on now to our next segment, and this is going to be on types of assignments. So once again, I'm going to start with Allison. So you can answer more. So what are some of the most common types of writing assignments that students are going to encounter while they're in grad school?
Well, in terms of the ones that I see coming into the Writing Center, we see a lot of literature reviews. We see a lot of case studies, synthesis papers of looking at different sources. We work with a lot of nursing students, and they're doing, evidence-based practice papers or policy papers that they have to look at a particular issue within nursing, such as workplace violence, and then look into the potential solutions for that as in their next paper. And then in their final paper, they pick one of the solutions they found in research and sort of lay out what that would look like. Those are the main papers that I see from students coming to the Writing Center, but you also have capstone projects And when I was a grad student, there was a lot of white papers that I had to write. But yeah, that's my experience.
And you kind of like mentioned it in your answer, so I'm just going to bring up my next question already, which is how do expectations differ for differing assignments like research papers and lit reviews? Because I personally don't really know what a lit review is, if I'm being completely honest.
Okay, well, a literature review, the way that I explain it to my students who are not graduate students, the College Writing 2, is a literature review is that you are understanding the scholarly conversation around a particular topic. So, for example, let's say you were looking into how other nurses deal with, well, workplace violence, like I was saying, right? So you're going to look at all the most relevant research studies or literature, quote unquote, about that topic. And then you're going to compare it it's more than compare and contrasting, but I feel like that's the easiest way to put it that everyone can understand. But you're going to compare and contrast what those different sources are saying that about that topic, and you're going to look for gaps in the research, and then that is where you can position your own research, is where that gap in the literature and what's currently out there as what is the conversation. And at that point, then you are ready to enter the conversation. Just like if you went to a party and everyone was talking about a topic you knew nothing about, you couldn't enter that conversation unless you could understand that topic first. So that's kind of what a literature review does, is to prepare you to position your own research.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I don't know how I have avoided those, if that's a College Writing 2 assignment, but...
Oh, it's not.
Oh.
I mean, I've tried to make it one, but I found that I've made it a lot. I started out with a real literature review with 8 sources, and that was just way too much. So then I just really walked it back, and now I call it a literature review in miniature because it's only comparing, contrasting 2 sources. So it's doing the work of a literature review, but on a smaller scale with lower stakes.
Awesome. Okay, well, I do know that you have to go. So thank you for joining us today.
Yes, of course.
I appreciate
Thank you so much.
But we're just going to continue on through the rest of these questions together. First of all, based on what Allison just said, Chris, do you have anything to add on common writing assignments students are going to encounter in grad school, or anything to add on differing expectations between assignments?
Yeah, sure. So Allison, based on what I remember, she basically listed off most of the common ones. I know in terms of literature reviews, I've also had ones where it was just like a thematic sort of, not so much a summary, but literature review of a field. So you're going over the different discoveries and papers on everything that you can think of regarding one individual field, and you're going over the different, or what is the current state of that field and what will the future look like. And that's kind of the goal of that literature review, is to sort of educate yourself on what the field looks like at that time. So that might be another form in which your literature review might manifest itself in your grad studies. There's also we don't get so many of these in the writing center, but there's independent studies where you're collecting your own data. Usually those are more so extended projects where you'll have extended project sports people coming in for bigger research that they're doing on their own at the writing center, and we'll work with those students. So yeah.
And then I was just thinking as you were talking, you're a grad student, so do you see any major differences in your field now that you're in grad school in comparison to when you were in undergrad?
A little bit. I think one of the main differences just comes from the research and having to sort of collect a lot of my own data and analyze a lot of my own data, and then finding a good way to integrate that into my research paper. So the way that we format our research papers might be a little bit different than, say, someone in nursing formats a research paper. For my primary exposure towards like research writing came from like English and things like that. So it was sort of we had to put in a lot of work in order to transition ourselves to be able to do that sorts of writing, if that makes sense.
It does. And I think you bring up a good point of learning a lot of that, like, standard research writing, quote unquote, from an English classroom. And I think once you get to, like, grad school, it's important to be able to adjust yourself to write for a specific discipline outside of English, which I'm sure can be really difficult for many students who aren't accustomed to that. So, Tyra, in your experience while working in the Writing Center, what types of assignments do you see students struggle with the most, and why do you think that is?
I think the types of assignments I see students struggle with are the ones where it's sort of all throughout the semester, where they're putting together pieces of each of different parts of their research. So at first they'll have a lit review, and then they'll have another part of their research paper. But since they're doing it in chunks, when they put it all together, sometimes they don't double check like all their information and if it's like flowing through correctly. So I think where students tend to struggle is when they're piecing everything together, and where those transitions are, because they're taking such long breaks between each section of their writing. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think that made sense. And I think, like, even when students come in with their capstones, I think, like, that is especially prevalent, at least in my experience, because it is such, first of all, an incredibly important assignment. And then secondly, you're working on it throughout the entire semester, so you're constantly, like, looking back on things and revising things. And so I think it can be a struggle to stay consistent, if that makes sense.
And I think, like, people tend to forget, like, what they're writing,
Yes.
especially if they do one section of their paper at the beginning of the semester, and then they're, like, doing all this research, and then they forget, like, oh, this is what I was talking about.
Right.
So I think it's just managing, like, remembering that you're putting everything together.
Yeah, very good. Very well said. Chris, do you have anything to add about the assignments students struggle with the
Yeah,
most?
bouncing off that a little bit, especially when it comes to like presenting research. I know that students can get a lot into like the weeds of that, you know, and then they'll sort of lose their logical flow. So just making sure that your like every piece of information that you're putting has a purpose, if that makes sense. Like it's serving a higher purpose.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really good point to make. Like, you have to make sure when you're writing an elongated like research paper to make sure that everything has a purpose and to not put too much fluff inside your paragraphs. I think like that's a common theme that I personally see in the Writing Center, because people are so used to having to do that, but then when it comes to like a research assignment, like you really need to try to avoid that, if that makes sense. I feel like I didn't word that the best way. But now we are going to move on to our next segment, which is on challenges and growth. So my first question is, what are some of the biggest challenges graduate students face when developing their own writing style as a grad student? And I would like Tyra to start off with this.
I think the biggest challenge I see is understanding like how to integrate their voice into their research, because a lot of the times it's just information, but they don't realize like how like your voice should be in this too. You need to be analyzing your data and putting it in a way that your reader can understand, because even if it is like a nursing paper, while your teacher is gonna understand your terms, you also gotta make sure like other like normal people, you know what I'm saying?
You have to like make sure that normal people who are not nurses can
there
understand.
we go. Yeah.
That is not to say that nurses are not normal people.
But like like a different type of audience, like other researchers or other people looking into this type of research, that they can also understand. So making sure you understand your audience as well as analyzing your information.
Right, that's something I often find myself emphasizing during appointments is readability of people's assignments. I know that we probably often think like, oh, it's just my professor who's going to read it, or, whatever the case may be. But it is really important to put it into practice while you're in school, because say when you graduate, you go on to do more research and you want to publish, like you have to be able to make it accessible for all crowds.
Audiences.
Yeah, audiences, crowds. Okay. Chris, do you have anything to add?
Not really. I mean, when you said like adding in your own or when you said writing style, I personally didn't really have any thoughts on like how I would answer that, but I think Tyra took a very good approach, or clever approach, I suppose, when it comes to like adding your voice into writing, because that's something I definitely see students struggle with. So yeah.
So my next question can apply to not only grad students, but undergrad and maybe any grade level, because I feel as though I have personally experienced this as a student for many differing reasons throughout my entire academic career. So my question is, how can students deal with feelings like imposter syndrome or self-doubt when it comes to their writing, or even when it just comes to their ability as a grad student or an undergrad student? And Chris, why don't you start us off with this?
So I've in the past I've had like internships and things like that, and they've had seminars regarding imposter syndrome and having confidence in the ability to do things and belong in all of these different places, despite that, like the fact that everyone around you like seems so smart and all of those things. But I think the reason why I've never really struggled with imposter syndrome is just because my confidence comes from the effort that I put in. So if you're in a position where like you feel like everyone around me is so smart, do I deserve to be where I am, right? Just look at the amount of effort that you've put in the past, right? And even if you don't trust yourself, trust that, because that's also yourself. Those are the things that you've achieved. So the fact that you've achieved them means that maybe you should be there, right? Hopefully that was inspirational in some way.
You know what, Chris? You're very right about that. When you put in the effort in grad school and even undergrad, you put in all that effort to push yourself forward, and I think it's incredibly important to reward yourself some level of grace when you are doing all that work. I think I personally this semester have experienced a lot of self-doubt when it comes to my future career, but I look back on the effort and the work that I have done over the last few semesters, and I feel proud of it, and I know that I know what I'm doing. Tyra, do you have anything to add?
No, I think the same. I think I feel imposter syndrome or self-doubt every day. But I think the biggest thing for me is I'm here and I got here somehow. So don't doubt yourself, because you wouldn't have made it to where you are if you weren't good enough, you know?
Yeah, no, you're 100% right. You would not be where you are if you were not good enough. I think that, yeah, very well said. You hit the nail on the head. I have nothing to add to that. Okay, guys. Now, we will move on to our next segment. Everybody's favorite segment, Word of the Week.
Yay.
So.
Yes! Yes!
Yes!
Mhm.
Okay.
Yes,
Oh my
yes.
God.
Josh is about to hop on so that he can also have a guess.
Josh is back.
Yes, welcome back, Josh. So, Word of the Week. If you are a regular listener, you know what it is, but I will explain it. My guests will try to guess the meaning of a word that I give them, and hopefully they'll get it right.
Do we each get a different word?
No.
Or, okay.
So it's one word, and then I'm gonna give it to you, and you can just start.
Okay.
You can just start guessing. Okay, you guys ready? The word of the week is pusillanimous.
Sounds like a Harry Potter spell.
It does.
Pusillanimous.
I picked it because I will be completely honest. I Googled important grad writing words that every grad writer should know.
It's a grad writing.
And this was one of them. I don't know that any grad writer would really use this word, but
Pusillanimous.
Can I have it in a sentence?
yes. So the sentence is: some also have lost lawyers dismayed by the pusillanimous behavior of their leaders.
Absurd.
Outrageous.
Aggressive.
No.
Unprofessional.
No.
Okay, say the sentence again. One
Okay.
more time.
Some also have lost lawyers dismayed by the pusillanimous behavior of their leaders.
Dismayed.
They lost their lawyers because of the
So they were.
Pusillanimous.
pusillanimous.
So the.
Behavior of their leaders. Does it have something to do with like corrupt behavior, like controlling a situation?
No.
of
Would you like me to tell
of the-
you like the origin?
Yeah, country of origin.
Okay,
I
well,
want another sentence. Okay, but yeah.
with another sentence. I have other ones.
Latin.
Okay, so yeah, Latin pusillis, meaning very small, and Latin animus, meaning mind.
Ooh,
I will
okay.
say that the very small mind
Small
doesn't
brain.
really
Petty.
Stupid.
doesn't really align with the definition.
Oh, so it's not about being petty, small-minded.
Closed-minded. Yeah, I was just gonna say narrow-minded.
Yeah.
Like
no, I can.
not open to
I
other
could give you
opinions.
another
Pusillanimous
sentence.
behavior.
Okay, yes, please.
Okay, hang on.
This is really weird being on the other end of word of
Yeah,
the week.
guessing.
Okay, she almost feels sorry for him, the pusillanimous wretch.
Oh,
It's gotta be like a
Is
a
it
rude
something
term, like
something
you,
about like ego, right?
egotistical.
No.
Wretch.
Pusillanimous, wretch,
Do you guys have any
small-minded, but that doesn't. have
any
anything
final
to do.
guess or guesses you want me to give you
Pusillanimous.
the answer? Are you guys
can-
ready to give
You
up?
can use a lawyer or lose a lawyer by being pusillanimous.
Are we anywhere like in the ballpark? Are we like
Yeah, are we close?
like
you
a-
guys are like close
adjacent?
in the sense that it is a person like showing something about themselves,
Mhm.
but you guys haven't really like you haven't said the word or words that it is about.
Oh, or words.
showing like
I could say
the
okay. I can
true
give you guys a hint.
colors.
I'll give you guys a hint. So it's
Mhm.
showing a lack of something.
Lack of authority,
Intelligence.
No,
lack
no.
of
Like inconsiderate.
No.
Lack of
All right.
empathy.
No.
Okay.
All right, you
We
guys
suck.
ready? So the definition is showing a lack of courage or determination.
Cowardly wretch.
So it's marked
Ah.
marked by like being timid in a way that is like contempt, like you would contempt them.
Okay.
like
But
the,
good job,
the
guys.
lion? Like the lion in Narnia, the pusillanimous lion.
The lion in
Like the
Narnia.
cowardly lion.
That's not
From
Narnia.
That's
The Wizard
of
that is
Oz.
Wizard of Oz.
The
Yeah.
lion in
You
Narnia.
guys are wrong.
The lion in Narnia is like a hero.
Yeah.
Just vote me out.
Very interesting. All right. Time to wrap it up. Before we close today's episode, I want to remind our listeners that the Writing Center is always here to support you. You can make an appointment by visiting My Lewis and clicking the WC Online tab under Advising and Academic Support. You can also visit our online writing lab by going to lewisu.edu/writing center. Thank you to Allison, Tyra, and Chris for joining me in today's conversation, and to Josh for producing the episode today. Finally, thank you to our listeners for tuning in. Keep writing, keep revising, and keep on sharing your voice. This has been Go With The Flow. Until next time.
Why don't we just get this started?